now listening to the Fantasy's Finest podcast. Here are your hosts, William Spencer and Jalen McQueen.
What's going on, Fantasy World? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy's Finest podcast. We are heading into week 3 now, so I hope you did better than me after the first 2 weeks. I actually did pretty good my first week in fantasy, but my second week I caught a beatdown, and from a variety of places. I actually went back and tallied up the fantasy leagues that I'm in this year, and somehow I ended up in 19 leagues. Yeah, that wasn't planned, but this week in week 2, horrible fantasy week for me. 5-14. Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson beat the crap out of some of my teams, man. And it didn't help that I had Cam Newton and Drew Brees too put up dud weeks for me. David Johnson got hurt in the league that I have him in. I couldn't catch a break. I'm just glad I didn't run into the buzzsaw that was the Patriots defense, because good Lord, the Dolphins didn't even try and put up points on against them. But enough about me in this sucky week 2. Let's get into our episode. In this one, we're going to cover our waiver wire ads for this week, heading into week 3. If you are dealing with some of the injuries that have happened to some of the quarterbacks around the league, like Drew Brees or Big Ben, you're definitely going to want to hit the waiver wire to add a new quarterback that can hopefully help you out. There are some other positions that you may need to get a boost in, like wide receiver or running back. So we have a few guys that we're going to mention to you, so hopefully they can help your team out. But before we get into that, you know what we got to do. Make sure you follow the Fantasy's Finest podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Fantasy's Finest. Make sure you go to Facebook and like our page. Join our group. Join the community. There's been lively since fantasy season has started. There's a whole bunch of conversation and talks on there. So make sure you join in and don't be shy. You can also subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. We're on Google and Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, Pocket Cast, and so many more. Hit that subscribe button, share it with your friends, show us some love on Apple, and give us some reviews, show them stars, and I hope you continue to enjoy the podcast. Well, let's not wait any longer. Let's get into the finest breaking news and get right into this podcast.
This is breaking news.
Okay, now this is going to suck, because if you were like me and you were targeting quarterbacks towards the end of your draft, or waiting until the double-digit rounds to grab one, and you happen to grab Big Ben, losing him earlier in the season, or this early in the season, is a hurt piece. But unfortunately, I got to report it. So here goes. Steelers quarterback Ben Roethlisberger will miss the rest of the season after having elbow surgery. He was knocked out of Sunday's game against the Seahawks with the injury and was unable to return to the game. When I saw the replay, it looked like he made the pass, but after he made the pass, he started wincing in pain, and it didn't look like he could raise that arm, and he had to be taken off the field. He wanted to avoid surgery. He was hopeful that this injury wasn't as serious as it was revealed to be, but he had to have surgery, and he will be missed the rest of the season. Mason Rudolph will come in relief, and he'll be the quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers for the rest of the year. To make matters worse, it happened again to another quarterback. Well, not the same injury, but Drew Brees also went down with an injury of his own. He will miss the next 6 weeks after having surgery on his thumb and on his throwing hand. Now, it is a freak accident, but it kind of shows you how freakishly strong Aaron Donald is. Drew Brees threw a pass, and Aaron Donald came free and chopped Drew Brees in the hand, and he tore ligaments in his hand. I don't know how strong you have to be to do that, but Aaron Donald is next level freakishly strong if he can just hit you in the hand and bust your whole hand up. But to get back to the report, Drew Brees wanted to get a second opinion, but it was also revealed because of the torn ligaments in his thumb, he would have to have surgery. He won't be gone for the whole season, but he will miss the next 6 weeks. His likely return will be somewhere around November 10th when they face off against the Falcons. The Saints do have a bye during week 9. I've already seen people start to drop him in fantasy leagues. If you have an injury reserve spot, you're probably pacing him on there, but it looks like most folks aren't going to be waiting around for Drew Brees to come back. It kind of sucks because many people were saying that Drew Brees wasn't going to have a good year. I kind of disagree. He's been a top 10 quarterback in fantasy for the last couple of years. He has the weapons. It's just a shame that the injury knocked him out, and his fantasy value will drop if he sticks around next season. Let's keep going into the reports. Injuries happened to the Cowboys as well, which sucks because Michael Gallup was having a good start to the season. Michael Gallup will miss the next 2 to 4 weeks with a meniscus injury in his knee. He had a minor knee surgery operation to shave down the meniscus injury. He was off to a hot start. He had 226 yards receiving over the first 2 weeks. No touchdowns though, but it's still a pretty good start, considering that he got time to gel with Dak Prescott on the offseason and with Kellen Moore's new looking offense actually paying dues. According to Jason Garrett, Devin Smith will get more work with Michael Gallup on the mend. We'll get more into Devin Smith later on in our waiver wire segment. That's a name you might want to remember. Going back to Pittsburgh, the Steelers' James Conner is considered day-to-day after leaving Sunday's game against the Seahawks with a knee injury. I think this is more of the fact that when Big Ben went down and then James Conner got hurt, everybody in Steelers Nation got that sinking feeling that the world was ending because you just lost your quarterback and now your running back is hurt too. But he was seen at the Steelers facility on Tuesday. He was walking around fine. So it's more speculated that he won't miss week 3. He should be good to go against the 49ers. Heading to Philadelphia, the Eagles lost their wide receivers earlier in the game against the Falcons on Sunday. Both Deshaun Jackson and Alshon Jeffrey were injured in that game. Jackson is dealing with some kind of groin injury, while Alshon Jeffrey is dealing with a calf injury. They also lost Dallas Goedert in pregame. He hurt his calf during the pregame. I don't know how you do that, but that kind of sucks for the Eagles because Dallas Goedert was a big part of what they were trying to do in their 2 tight end sets. As far as the wide receivers go, if Jackson and Jeffrey are to miss time, Nelson Aguilar, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, and Mac Hollins will step in to fill the void against the Lions in week 3. We'll get into those names as well during the waiver segment. Heading to Kansas City, LaShawn McCoy and Damian Williams are dealing with injuries of their own. LaShawn McCoy is dealing with an ankle injury. He'll undergo an MRI to find out what's really going on with it. And Damian Williams is dealing with a knee injury. The latest information on Damian Williams is that the knee is some kind of knee contusion, but it's not viewed to be serious. Their statuses for week 3 are still up in the air, though. If they do miss time, Darwin Thompson would be the next man up to get the reps. And finally, this one's a little bit older, I believe, but the Jets quarterback Sam Darnold will be out 3 to 7 weeks as he's dealing with mono. He kind of old to be dealing with mono, but if you got to see the Browns and Jets game on Monday night, they need him. So hopefully he'll be able to come back a little sooner. But 3 to 7 weeks without their franchise quarterback, that's got to suck too. But this will wrap it up for the finest breaking news segment. Now let's get into the waiver wires and see who you need to add for week 3. Okay, now for our waiver wire segment, I'm going to give you a couple names at each position that you should be targeting with your waiver wire picks. I'm not going to front and say I'm familiar with Fab too much, but I'll stick to the traditional waiver wire method. If you have a high waiver wire position, you might want to target these guys. You might want to target these guys so that they can help your team out. We're going to begin with the quarterback position. Up first, I have Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, he looked pretty good against the Bengals, but the Bengals defense kind of sucks. So, kind of take it for what it is. He went and threw for 297 yards and 3 touchdowns in week 2. He has a cake matchup against the Pittsburgh Steelers, whose defense is kind of going out the window the last couple weeks. They got steamrolled by the Patriots in week 1, and they didn't look any better last week against Seattle. So Jimmy Graham could be a start for you this week. His next 3 opponents are the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have a bye the following week, and then they take on Cleveland and the Rams. So you have some pretty decent matchups for Jimmy Garoppolo. That bye week in the middle of that is probably going to mess you up a little bit. So you may have to find another option. But we got some more names on the list too. So let's keep going. The next one I have is Andy Dalton. He may not impress a lot of people, but he's been throwing at a crazy pace for over the first 2 weeks of the season. He's almost got 100 attempts just in the first 2 weeks. He threw for 311 yards and 2 touchdowns and 1 interception against the 49ers. He does have a tough matchup over his next opponent in week 3. He has the Buffalo Bills. They can be a pain in the neck as far as beating up on opposing quarterbacks. But if you're looking for a quarterback who has to chuck it, Andy Dalton is the guy that you're going to need. His next 3 opponents are the Buffalo Bills, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Arizona Cardinals. He is a quarterback who has to throw the ball. His offensive line isn't good. His run game is banged up. He is missing A.J. Green, but John Ross and Tyler Boyd have filled in pretty well in A.J. Green's absence. He has to pass the ball if he wants his team to win. And Zach Taylor, the head coach for the Cincinnati Bengals, does not seem opposed to not allowing Andy Dalton to throw the ball. So in terms of sheer volume, you know what you're going to get with Dalton. He has to throw the ball for the team to win, and he's going to put up points. He had me a little worried last week because I started him for week 2, and it got kind of sketchy until he threw that last touchdown, that deep touchdown pass to John Ross. Garbage time still counts. So if he can do it for you, he can do it for me. He can do it for everybody else. Andy Dalton should be a target for this week's waiver wire. This missed the breaking news segment, but Daniel Jones has been named the starter for week 3 against Tampa Bay. If you're in a gambling mood, you might want to add Daniel Jones. If you have a spot that you can stash him and wait and see how he looks in his first start in the NFL, he could be a guy that you could use later on down the line. His next 3 opponents are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as mentioned, Washington, and then Minnesota. So if Daniel Jones is the real deal, he'll have Golden Tate back after week 4, more likely against Minnesota. And he has Evan Ingram. He has Saquon Barkley. Sterling Shepard should be coming back this week. But he has enough weapons that he may not be able to win a bunch of games, but he may be able to put up fantasy points. I have him in one league. Actually drafted him late. I kind of had the feeling that Eli Manning was not going to make it through the season. I didn't think that he was going to get canned this early, but the Giants suck. So what else do you have to lose? So they're going to start Daniel Jones for week 3, and hopefully he'll start the rest of the season. Another quarterback that you should probably be looking at is Mason Rudolph, as he's taking over for Big Ben and the Steelers. Since Big Ben is gone, Mason Rudolph actually looked pretty good in relief. I think he threw for about 211 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Seahawks. He's not afraid to throw the ball downfield. And if the Steelers look to try and win any type of games, they're going to have to do that. They have to be more aggressive. And Mason Rudolph has to be able to gel with, Juju and James Washington. I think Dante Moncrief, man, talk about blowing an opportunity. He stunk it up over the first 2 weeks. Now, I really hope that Deontay Thompson gets to get out there on the field. Maybe not as the number 2, because it looks like James Washington is going to take that role. But if Deontay Johnson, if he can get out there and get some reps and actually show his worth, hopefully the fact that maybe Mason Rudolph has been practicing with him, maybe building up some chemistry, that might be able to get him out some reps. But we'll have to wait and see on that. But for now, the first 2 that are going to be starting are likely Juju Smith-Schuster and James Washington, as he's been outperforming Dante Moncrief the last 2 weeks. The Steelers take on the San Francisco 49ers, the Cincinnati Bengals, and then they have a rough spot with the Baltimore Ravens. That's a division game, and that can go either way. But Mason Rudolph should be a guy that if you have Big Ben, you might want to target. If you have like Daniel Jones, if you want to see what he can do beforehand, you might want to stash him, put him on your bench, and hopefully he blows up for you so you can be more comfortable starting him. Now let's go on to the running backs. First up is Raheem Mostert. It's a T at the end. He took 13 carries for 83 yards, and then he had another 3 catches for 68 yards and a touchdown against the Bengals. He's backing up Matt Breida. Tevin Coleman's going to be gone for a while with the high ankle injury. So it's going to be Matt Breida and Raheem Mostert for what looks like it's going to be a while. Tevin Coleman's going to be gone for several weeks. They haven't specified how many, but he's going to be the backup and he's going to get work. They're going to split reps. So Raheem Mostert is at least a flex option. So you might want to grab him up if you need a running back. Shady and Damian Williams are hurt. If you drafted Miles Sanders and Jordan Howard, they haven't been doing much either. So this would be a good piece that you could put into your team and give it a little boost. The 49ers play the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have a bye in the middle, and they play Cleveland and the Rams, as mentioned earlier with Jimmy Garoppolo. Another guy that you want to look at to add is Frank Gore. Now, I know this guy, he just doesn't seem to go away, but Devin Singletary is dealing with a hamstring issue. There's no new information on how severe it is or if he'll miss time, but if he does, Frank Gore would get the bulk of the carries. He had 19 carries for 68 yards against the Giants and a touchdown. So he has the ability to carry the mail. You kind of don't want him to, because you want Devin Singletary to be healthy and to continue to blow up, so that there's no excuse as to why the Buffalo Bills have not given Devin Singletary the job. But if Devin Singletary does miss time, Frank Gore is going to be the man there. They play the Cincinnati Bengals, the New England Patriots, and the Tennessee Titans over the next 3 weeks. The next guy on my list is Darwin Thompson. He's more like a speculative ad, because, like Frank Gore, if the first 2 guys on the Chiefs miss time, he's gonna have a role. But that's only if LaShawn McCoy and Damian Williams can't go for week 3. Darwin Thompson will take on the Baltimore Ravens, the Detroit Lions, and the Indianapolis Colts over the next 3 weeks. Like I said, if LaShawn McCoy and Damian Williams can't go. So you might want to just, If you have a spot, stash him. He's a stasher. He may not have value right away, but you don't want to miss him. And then reports come out later that there's something wrong with LaShawn McCoy's ankle, or the knee contusion that we thought was okay with Damian Williams is a lot worse than what we thought it was. So he's a stasher for this week. Now let's go on to our wide receivers. Demarcus Robinson is going to be the hot waiver item this week because he completely lit it up. He had 6 targets. He took 6 targets for 172 yards and 2 touchdowns. I was kind of hoping that Sammy Watkins was going to take over. He kind of did. He got the most targets out of the team, but Mecole Hardman and Demarcus Robinson in particular, they did the most damage with the targets that they got. Both Demarcus Robinson, I mentioned Demarcus Robinson earlier, but you also want to target Mecole Hardman if he's still on the waiver wire in your fantasy leagues. Demarcus is going to be the one everybody tries to get because of his performance. But Mecole Hardman had 4 catches for 61 yards and a touchdown too. He's getting more work, because Tyreek Hill is out. I wouldn't sleep on him. If you think that if you get the vibe in your leagues that everyone is going to be trying to get Demarcus Robinson with their higher waiver picks, try and be the smarter guy and grab Mecole Hardman if he's still available. There's nothing wrong with that. Sammy Watkins is still going to be the man, but it looks like Patrick Mahomes has the ability to spread the ball around and just destroy you with everyone. Take it from somebody who got whooped by him this week in week 2. Another guy you want to check your waiver wire for, if he's still on there, is Buffalo Bills' John Brown. He's been getting targeted like crazy. He is the number 1 over there. You can forget about Zay Jones and Cole Beasley, but John Brown is the man. He had 8 catches for 72 yards against the Giants. They play Cincinnati, New England, and Tennessee the next 3 games. Cincinnati should be more of a cakewalk. He may have issues with New England, but it seems like everybody has. But John Brown is a good ad. He's going to be targeted by Josh Allen. He shouldn't be on your waiver wire by now. He should be off. But if he's still there, make sure you grab him up for yourself. We mentioned Nelson Aguilar and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. These guys should be ads if more news comes out that Jackson and Jeffrey will miss extended time. Per the recording of this podcast, we don't have any new information, but if there's something that pops up after we drop this, make sure you grab them too. Nelson Aguilar is going to be targeted a lot. He saw 11 targets during the Atlanta Falcons game. Hopefully J.J. Arcega-Whiteside sees more work. I think he has the talent to be good. This may be his opportunity to show it. So hopefully he doesn't blow it. They have Detroit next. They have Detroit for week 3. Then they play Green Bay and the Jets. So I don't know if they missed a couple of games or more. These guys could be steals in the fantasy draft with Carson Wentz. Hopefully they'll get that offense going and be able to do more damage. Now, one more guy I wanted to add is Devin Smith. We talked about him a little bit earlier during the news segment. Devin Smith is going to get more reps because Michael Gallup is out. I kind of get the feeling that Randall Cobb could benefit a bit more because he was with the starting unit, and you would think that with Michael Gallup going down, they would slide more targets over to Cobb and Cooper. But if Devin Smith is going to be out there, he's your burner. He kind of fills that role that Michael Gallup had. I don't know how often. I can't say how often Dak Prescott is going to target him, but he can be dangerous too. He's a deep threat. You saw that 51-yard bomb he did on the Washington Redskins in week 2. So you could take a chance on Devin Smith. Hopefully he blows up for you. I'm trying to target him in deeper leagues. I have a 14 team IDP league and hopefully I'll be able to grab him in that. I kind of doubt it though, because that's a fab waiver selection, and I'm not trying to drop too much coin on to get him, but we'll see how that goes. Let's go into the tight ends. If these two should still be on your waivers, but you might want to add them to your team. It's Greg Olsen and Will Dissly. Now, Greg Olsen has been doing numbers the last 2 weeks. He's heavily targeted by Cam Newton. He's Cam's safety blanket. So everything, they run more of a short game for the Panthers. So he benefits a lot from the targets. He's killing it in PPR so far. He has 6 of 9 for 110 yards against the Bucks. They play Arizona, who got smoked by tight ends so far this season. They have Houston and they have Jacksonville after that. If I can get Greg Olsen on my squad off of waivers, I definitely would make that move. Tight end is so scarce as it is. O.J. Howard is looking like a bust early on. He's not getting the targets. You have old guys like Jason Witten. You could use him, but he scored 2 touchdowns the last 2 weeks, but he's not really getting targeted like that. You also have Jared Cook, who's been on a milk carton the last 2 weeks. He's not getting any looks. And that's kind of what I was worried about coming into the season, because the New Orleans Saints, they just seem to forgot about the tight end position after Jimmy Graham left. Now, Will Dissly was a guy who was grabbing attention last year before he went down with injury. He went 5 for 5 for 50 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Steelers. He was third on the team in targets behind Lockett and Metcalf. He could be the next option in the passing game and in the red zone for the Seattle Seahawks. They've been looking to add more weapons. It looked a little scarce in the beginning because DK Metcalf was dealing with that knee injury. Tyler Lockett is your slot wide receiver who has the most experience with Russell Wilson. So it makes sense that Will Dissly can come in and be an asset for Russ, especially when they get closer to the red zone. I don't think, this is more of a guess, but if people in your fantasy league aren't really paying attention, you might be able to sneak Will Dissly and get him on your team. Hopefully his target share will probably stay around the same 5 or 6 targets a game, but he should be getting looks in the red zone. Another 2 guys that I kind of left off my list, but because they're suspended, but you might want to look at your fantasy leagues and give them an ad now because they'll be coming off of suspension soon. Chris Herndon from the New York Jets, the tight end, and Golden Tate, the wide receiver for the New York Giants. They both got 4-game suspensions. They should be coming off the suspension list soon. You might want to get a jump on grabbing them now before their suspension is over, and then they're in waiver wire hot spots. If you grab them now, stash them on your bench, you won't have to worry about trying to fight for them later on. If Daniel Jones, particularly Golden Tate, if Daniel Jones comes in and he looks real comfortable in the offense, adding Golden Tate to that mix will be very beneficial. You know how Golden Tate is in terms of targets. He kind of catches everything underneath. He can play in the slot and outside, but he's a better slot wide receiver, and he can do damage very quickly. Chris Herndon showed promise during the preseason with Sam Darnold. I think he'll benefit more once Sam Darnold comes back from his sickness. For right now, if you're strong on tight ends, adding Chris Herndon, or if you can add Chris Herndon to your bench and stash him, and hopefully better news comes out of Sam Darnold coming back sooner, Chris Herndon can pay off dividends for you early, once Sam Darnold comes back from being sick. But that'll wrap it up for our waiver wire episode. Thank you for listening as always. Let's close it down. Make sure you share, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. Leave us a podcast review on Apple Podcasts and give us some of those stars, man. We need them stars. Let us know what we we could do to make the podcast better. Let us know what you liked about it. We will check you guys in the next episode. We're going to do our wrap. I want to do the wrap up for week 2 and do a little accountability segment for my starts and sits from week 2. So I got some stuff that I'm working on to get this thing going. But until the next episode, I will see you guys later. Take it easy.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Fantasy's Finest podcast. Be sure to join the Fantasy's Finest community on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Fantasy's Finest.
Please don't turn me on.